Can you all think of a time where you ever felt lonely? My first time would be when I was 5 years old, and I moved to a country where no one looked like me or spoke any English. On my first day of class, I told everyone that I had 20 siblings, because I didn't know the word for cousins in French. I'm actually an only child. Luckily, the next time I remember feeling this way was 13 years later, on my second day of Freshers Week. I found out that morning I had lost someone very close to me, and suddenly, I was in this new city with none of my family or friends around, and no one to talk to. Because, ironic as it is, even at a medic's freshers pub crawl, talking about dying is not an appropriate icebreaker. So on that day, I did something I hadn't done in 13 years. I spoke to a stranger, and she ended up becoming one of my best friends. Now, just like in architecture, in medicine we learn that form follows function. Our bodies are designed to optimally perform the purpose that they're designated for. The human brain is an area where scientists have struggled to correlate form and function together. We have managed to locate an area of the brain, called the amygdala, which was responsible for assigning emotions to experience. Now, some research has suggested that 2/3 of the neurons, or cells, in this part of the brain look out for negative signals, whereas only 1/3 look out for positive ones. Positive information has to be retained for over a dozen seconds before it makes it to long-term memory storage, whereas negative experiences are cataloged right away. Effectively, our brains are anatomically primed to have a negativity bias. We have 99 problems, and our negativity bias might well be all of them. Our approach to human connections and our fear of loneliness and rejection is one of the primary things I think is affected by this bias. We have one bad experience, and that 2/3 of our amygdala overpowers us. We recoil, take a step back, and perhaps we don't get the response we expect. And suddenly, that becomes the status quo. Transient loneliness occurs to every one of us. It's normal, completely natural, and yet so hard to talk about. And this can drive us to a point where we become apathetic to the loneliness of others around us, a loneliness which is perhaps far more profound, destructive. There's another interesting concept in medicine where sometimes something that is painful ends up being benign, harmless, and something which is painless ends up being malignant, dangerous. Loneliness is one of those things. It is a silent killer of our time. Because loneliness is the mother on the bus trying to get her sick baby to stop crying as everyone glares at her. It's the old lady on the ward who gets better but can't go home because no one can look after her. It is all the doctors who can't admit to their mistakes because of the stigma that surrounds failure. Loneliness is in the refugee crisis and the wage gap and every other form of social exclusion in between. They say it takes 5 positive social experiences to overcome just one negative one. And they also say that spending constructive time alone, such as in meditation or self-reflection, creates new connections in this area of our brain, allowing us to view things more positively. There are all kinds of ways you and I can navigate transient periods of loneliness, and by doing so, learn a little bit about how to empathize with those really suffering around us. Today, we click through random BuzzFeed articles on food choices and personality types, when instead we could be enjoying a home-cooked meal with our friends and talking about who we really are. We read endless articles on Brangelina split, but shy away from examining the cracks in our own relationships. We follow the trivial lives of young girls on YouTube, but forget to ask about the families of those that sit next to us at work. And we swipe eagerly on Tinder, but go out of the way to avoid eye contact on the bus. With technology at our fingertips, we not only want the perfect connections, but only at our own convenience. And by doing so, we're left at the halfway point, where we are neither with others, nor truly by ourselves. In order to overcome our negativity bias, we must go out and continue to connect with other people. We must not forget to make ourselves vulnerable, even if we can't predict the outcome. By doing so, we'll not only be able to shed our bias of negativity, but also learn how to absorb more positivity from experiences where we are alone, but not lonely. So take every ambulance siren as a reminder that our days are limited, but our options are limitless. Take every chance you can to be a little bit kinder. You might be someone's 5th positive connection. So talk to a stranger someday. They might just end up becoming your very best friend. Don't leave asking what if till the very end. Thank you.